And a good day to everybody. My
Good
name is
afternoon.
Deepak Sharma. I'll be the host for the coming session. Uh, I'm a sales director at Turnkey Consulting, responsible for the identity security business. Uh, the title, as you can see, of the session is the Path to Zero Trust: Bolster Your Security Posture with Privilege Management. Now, we are all living in a world where cyber threats are constantly growing and evolving. And as such, organizations must proactively adapt their security strategies. The upcoming session will provide all the essential information that you need regarding the core principles of zero trust and the importance of privilege management. Hopefully, at the end of this session, you will learn some of the concepts that can revolutionize and strengthen your organization's security posture. The speaker that I have for the coming session is Mr. Alvin Kamasosa. He's a PAM, Privilege Access Management Evangelist, working for Beyond Trust, which is a global leader in privilege access management solutions. Now, Alvin is a very seasoned cybersecurity professional with many years of experience in PAM technologies, network monitoring, and zero trust security. He's a trusted advisor to financial institutions, government organizations, and various industries. So I'm sure that in his session, he'll be able to bring out some of that experience and knowledge for the benefit of all the audience. Over to you, Alvin, and thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Right. Again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alvin Kamasasa. I'm one of the solution engineer from Beyond Trust, and I'm currently based in the Philippines. So today, I'm going to talk about the path to zero trust, bolster your security posture with privilege management. First, I want to speak about the threat landscape. Attack surface continue to expand as companies evolve. And the question here is why? 20 years ago, we are dealing with on-premise privileged credentials. And during that time, since we have a limited set of privileged credentials, we really don't think that it's a high risk. We really just thought that we just need those privileged credentials to be safeguarded. And 10 years ago, we saw the birth of the hypervisors in the cloud. We also saw SaaS applications. We saw hybrid environments starting to build. And we also saw most of the companies now are migrating to the cloud. And this is really important. It's because this hypervisor help us to shrink the physical footprint of our data centers. And now we are placing multiple machines within that hypervisors, and you are not only have credentials of those virtual machines, but all the management tool within that hypervisors, and many of them were not being managed at all. And today we have Internet of Things. We have automation DevOps CI/CD. We have privileged accounts everywhere, whether it's a camera, whether it's a robotics, whether it's automation systems, including things like vendor access and other automations for B2B transactions. And it's only going to expand, and it's really going to get worse because in the near future we are moving even more applications to the cloud. Attack surface continue to expand as companies evolve. That means there's a lot of attack surface needed to protect, and we need to manage those. Threat actors continue to take advantage. Every year there's a lot of data breach happening all over the world. And based on statistics, that 94% of the organizations have experienced a data breach that was composed of like engineering, malware, unpatched applications, stolen credentials, and misuse of privileged access. And 61% of those breaches is due to compromised credential. So that means it's really important to protect those privileged credentials. And by not effectively managing those privileged attack surface, it could create a massive risk to our entire environment. So when we think about the traditional password management technology, and when we think about the traditional PAM solution, it only covers a one set of problem, and that is from 20 years ago. And if you gonna look at those server sensitive resources and data within this diagram, the usual traditional password management technology is designed to put the passwords in the vault or safe, rotate it, check in, check out, and potentially do a session recording and report when it in use. So the traditional password management technology does not have the facilities for those DevOps and automations, for cloud management and operations, for mobile device, for next-gen technologies, and for remote workers that is necessarily to handle that explosions and that widening attack surface of privileges that we are spoke about. And that traditional password management technology as a part of the privileged access management solution does not solve that explosions and that expanding risk surface. Because today's attack vectors are very different from the past. We all know about the cloud management and operations attack, whether that is misconfigurations, a left open credentials, a left open ports, or even worse, a potential vulnerability and exploit that has not been patched. And we are also fully aware about the workstation-based vulnerabilities. This can be a local accounts. This can be an account used by our help desk. And it can be the same backdoor username and passwords for everybody's workstations. So, so the administrators or someone from the help desk team can connect in and help. And that is a bad idea. All it takes is being compromised once, and then malware, or even worse, a ransomware that can potentially use to affect your entire environment. So we have to make sure that those credentials are unique and those credentials are being rotated in a regular basis, especially after they use. And we still have the problem with the DevOps automations and robotics process automation that has hard-coded passwords. And storing password in a spreadsheet is also a bad idea. Automation should not have those hard-coded authentications mechanism. It should be calling to a secret server, or they should be calling to a secret safe so that they can get the latest set of credentials just in time to complete the workload and then exit. And we already know about the mobile device, like next gen technology, like cameras, alarm systems. They only have one account, and typically it's a root. And it's very rare that you can see a technology that has a very good rule-based technology model that you can create multiple users. So you have to make sure to secure that device, you need to like lock down using an ACL and other techniques on that device. And again, make sure that the credentials on that device is unique. And for the remote workers, since pandemic, many of us are working from home, including me. And the question here is, how am I gaining an access? Well, luckily, most of my resources are in the cloud, but for many of our organizations, it's not. And if why, for example, I'm one of the database administrator or an admin, how do you secure the privileged access remotely? And how do you give them those privileged credentials? So we need a mechanism to give privileges to remote workers while they are working at home and to mitigate the threats of the protocol tunneling and other risks in terms of exposing those privileged credentials to them that can be copied and spread by malware while they are working at home. So now let's take a look at the cyber attack chain and understand how all of these link to each other. So for insider threat, remember, there are some people intentionally doing something wrong, or there are some people that is being used as a mule within our organizations. And then for the traditional external threat, by attacking our sources directly. So the common goal for both of them is always to get some of form of privilege escalations. So they need to escalate that attack vector as an insider or external to something with privileges. So let's say, for example, I'm now inside the organizations and I have now an access to organization resources and I potentially know the credentials. So that means I can now move around the environment to do some lateral movements within the credential that was installed in order to exfiltrate the data or in order to install more malwares or have some form of denial as a service. So the goal of this cyber attack chain vector problem is to place a technology between these points so that we can monitor, manage, and stop those attacks. And with our integrated platforms and solution, Beyond Trust can provide a comprehensive level of protections for identities, access, and endpoints across your entire environment. The Beyond Trust platform is comprised of multiple technologies. With PasswordSafe, this will help you to secure and manage and monitor all the privileged access onto your privileged systems. And PasswordSafe will also be the your centralized privileged password management. But we are not only limited on managing the privileged credential password. If you're still using your SSH keys to authenticate to your Unix and Linux devices, we can manage it as well. As well as those secret keys, we can store it on our vault. And we can rotate and manage your credentials automatically. And with our session management or session monitoring, all the users and administrator activity can be recorded. Even the point key of mouse or key screw can be recorded. So that if there's something wrong happen, we have these recorded sessions that can be used for auditing purposes. And with privileged remote access, it handles the security aspect on the third-party vendor access that you wanted to control, monitor, and manage as well. And this can also be a replacement for your VPN users who is currently working from home. Our difference is we only require our customer to open 4443 outbound to remotely access your systems and applications. And all the remote access can be recorded as well. We can also push some policies for those third-party vendor. Let's say, for example, if you have upcoming POCs or implementations with your third-party vendor on your environment, we can set and schedule policies like from Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're just allowing them to access your systems. Or if you want to be more restrictive to those third-party vendor, we can create a policy to have an approval first before they can access your systems. And the third option is on demand, which we can send an external invite for those third-party vendors via email with a link so that they can join to your sessions and to help you with to resolve your problems and your other use cases. And after that sessions end, there is no way from them to go back to that sessions or to remotely access your systems. And we also have a remote support tool to help your help desk to support your users whenever they are. And if you have other use cases for your help desk, this can be this is our a remote support tool that we can recommend. With our remote support, we can provide also a full video sessions recording done by your technicians or support. And we can also audit all the events that will happen during that remote sessions between your technicians and your users. We can audit if, like for example, if one of your technician transfer a file to the user's endpoint, we can audit what is the file being transferred and what is the locations of that file. And if you're one of the head of the support team, you can also generate some reports like a statistic report and survey report for you to have the visibility on what are some of the comments of your users to your support team. And with Active Directory Bridge, it can give you a single sign-on experience for both Windows and non-Windows devices, such as Unix, Linux, and AIX devices. And with Active Directory Bridge, it can also give you a centralized authentications and configurations management on non-Windows devices by extending the Active Directory Kerberos authentications. And if you want to have a granular access permission, or if you want to remove the admin rights from all of your users and administrators, or if you want to have an application whitelisting or blacklisting, this can be done by our endpoint privilege management. What we do is we are going to elevate the privilege task of your users, not their account. So once we created a policy on our endpoint privilege management, your standard user can now do some privileged tasks that was approved by your security team without giving them a full administrator account. Currently, we support Windows, Mac, and Unix Linux devices. And with our last and new technology, we have the Identity Security Insight. And with Identity Security Insight, it can also give you a visibility into anomalous activity that is related to accounts, privileges, and identities. And it can also give you a proactive recommendations to reduce the identity and access attack surface. So that is all the solutions that we are currently offering. And we also have a seamless integrations with other third-party solutions. Like for automations, we can integrate with UiPath, Jenkins, Ansible. For identity governance, we can integrate with SailPoint, Oracle. For platforms, we can integrate with Microsoft, AWS, Kubernetes, Trellix. For service management, we can integrate with Ivanti, ServiceNow, BMC, Jira, Zendesk. For security and risk, we can integrate with Tenable, Qualys, Logarithms, Splunk, IBM. And for the access management, we can integrate with Okta, Ping Identity, Duo, Secure Auth, and Ubico. Beyond Trust is recognized by Gartner, KuppingerCole, and Forrester Wave as one of the PAM leader in the industry. And I'm happy to announce from the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant that Beyond Trust is still the leader for the fifth consecutive year. And we are not only a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, but for our remote support, we have been named as a Gartner Pre-Insight Customer Choice Award for 2 years in a row. The peers, the Peer Insight Awards are based on the verified reviews. And because of those recognition, 75% of the Fortune 100 in the world is using the Beyond Trust solution. We have 20,000 plus customer worldwide. We have customer from banking and financial companies, insurance companies, telco, airlines, media, entertainment companies, manufacturer, and government as well. We also have a 95% of gross retention rate, and we have NPS score of 55 and 95% of CSAT for customer experience. And we couldn't be successful without having certifications from ISO 27001, ISO 27701, ACPA SOC 2, PSI DSS, FedBRAMP FIPS 140-2, and common criteria. And that is all for me. If you have any questions, let me know.
Hi, Alvin. Thank you so much for your session and the information that you shared. I have a couple of questions that I would like to put out to you. I think everybody is very interested. I mean, everywhere you go, people are talking about zero trust, and I think you talk to any CISO, or first thing they would want to know is uh, what are you doing about zero trust? So, as a very simple question, can you help for the benefit of the audience? Can you just basically share your views in terms of why every organization must adopt to zero trust?
Okay, okay. So one of the reason is that zero trust represent a fundamental shift on how we're going to approach the cybersecurity in a complex environment. And this is also one of the reasons why we need to adopt to zero trust is that the landscape is constantly evolving. And we can see on my presentation earlier, we have talked about those attack vectors like those DevOps and automations, cloud management, operations, and remote workers. So, and we also need to comply with our security compliance requirements. And Zero Trust recognized that the perimeter-based security is no longer sufficient to protect against this advanced threat.
So I think as a follow-up of that question, one of the key things that most people wanting to take this journey of becoming zero trust, which I think is a journey. Where you start from as a maturity level. Uh, how would you? What would you advise organizations in terms of from their current infrastructure or current maturity level, if they have to advance to a zero trust architecture, um, what would be your points of specific key points of advice. And are there any specific steps or best practices that you would recommend?
Yeah, transitioning to a zero trust architecture is a very complex that requires a very careful planning and execution. So I think one of the steps that organization can adopt is to understand first the zero trust principle by familiarizing themselves or by familiarizing your team, no, with the core principle of the zero trust, which includes the least privileges, uh, the continuous authentications like the microsegmentations, and you also need to identify your organization's security needs and goals so that we can also identify whether you need to implement a least privileges, implementing a strong authentications like multi-factor authentications, or implementing a ZTA, or develop and enforce an access control policies.
Got it. And I think for the benefit of the audience, I would also like to emphasize here that turnkey consulting is as a leading identity security services provider. We typically also engage with potential customers who want to embark on their journey towards zero trust, and we have packages, consulting packages, where we can work with you, help assess your current maturity level, come out with your current state of affairs in terms of where you are, and then work out a whole journey or a blueprint for you to move mature into a kind of a zero trust environment, or zero trust posture. So that's for the benefit of the audience. Uh, uh, Finally, I think, Alvin, I mean, when we talk about security, when we talk about zero trust, and on the other hand, there's always a balance that you need to strike between putting too much of technology or too much of constraints or security versus how it is going to impact whether we talk about user experience from customers perspective, or employee productivity if you're talking about workforce perspective, because all these technologies that we put together, they have an impact. How would you suggest that people balance this out?
Yeah. Actually, for most of the organizations, no, there is an old age battle between this security and the productivity. So, if we focus on the security, most of the time it affects this user's productivity. And if we're going to focus on the productivity side, it might affect the security posture of the company. And that is also why balancing the productivity and security when implementing the zero trust is very crucial. It's because we really need to ensure that the security measure doesn't affect the organization's operations. And one of the beyond trust strategy is to achieve the balancing to by implementing the least privilege access, which is to eliminate the admin rights from the users and administrator or root account. And since we are using a concept of least privileges, no, we are elevating the user privilege task without giving them an administrator rights. So in that way, we can balance the productivity and the security. So also for the remote workers, by implementing the secure remote access that we can provide to all your employees with the tools that they need in order to work effectively from anywhere while they are working or while we are maintaining the security.
Okay, I think that's all what we have from the questions from the audience thus far. If there are no further questions, then we can conclude this session. But of course, the audience is always we are. You can always send us an email to Turnkey, or you can also there are other means for you to communicate your queries. We'll certainly be able to address your requirements. Uh, I'd like to thank you for your time, and thank you, Alvin, for taking this time to share your thoughts with the audience. Thank you so much, and have a
Thank you so
great
much.
day.